Hi there, friends. Today we're going to talk about the greatest prophecy in the Bible. Now, the Bible has many amazing prophecies. The one, though, that I find the most compelling is the 70 weeks of Daniel. The 70 weeks of Daniel gives the exact number of years, and some would even say days, from the declaration to rebuild the temple unto the Messiah, that being 77s, which is 490. But you have to take one of the weeks out, leaving you with 483. The prophecy goes like this. In the book of Nehemiah and the book of Esther, Nehemiah stands before the king and he's looking really sad and really bummed out. The king says to him, "Why are you so upset, Nehemiah?" And he says, "King, my heart is at home. I want to go home and rebuild the city of Jerusalem." And the king creates a mandate in 454 BC that's recorded in the book of Esther and Nehemiah, granting permission for Nehemiah to go to Israel. And in that time frame links to a famous vision given by the prophet Daniel, where an angel comes to him and tells him specifically when the Messiah is to come. Surrounding this whole thing is the ancient empire of Persia. So in 1550 was the beginning of the great Persian Empire, also known as the Achaemenid Empire. Now, a few people might immediately come to mind when you remember the Persian Empire. One of the most well-known would clearly be Cyrus the Great. Another one would be Darius. But I'm going to talk to you about Artaxerxes I, who was the fifth king of the Achaemenid Empire. Now, Artaxerxes was probably born during the reign of his grandfather, Darius I. Now, I like to call Artaxerxes Old Longarm because his name, Artaxerxes, name is Longimanus. So, Artaxerxes was the fifth king of the Achaemenid Empire from 465 to 424 BC. He was the son of Xerxes I. In Greek sources, he is also named long-handed, Latin for Longimanus. So his name is Artaxerxes Longimanus. Allegedly because his right hand was longer than his left. So if he put his hands out, one would extend further than the other. He maintained the Persian policy of religious tolerance and autonomy, and probably best known through the biblical books of Ezra and Nehemiah, where he's depicted as a great benefactor of the Jewish people, assisting them in the rebuilding of the temple at Jerusalem and the establishment of the Mosaic Law. Now here's a list of the kings that I had mentioned: Cyrus the Great, Darius the Great, and Artaxerxes I. And you can see a timeline stretching back from Cyrus all the way to Artaxerxes. So you get a sense of the sequence. Now, the way the prophecy works is in the book of Daniel. We read in Daniel 9:20, "While I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of God, yea, while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in a vision at the beginning, caused to fly swiftly, touched me at the time of the evening oblation. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding." Now here is the prophecy, and I'm going to say this is the most amazing prophecy in the Bible because it predicts the day of the Messiah. The angel says, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore, now here's the prophecy, know therefore, Daniel, and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be, here's the time frame, 7 weeks and 32 weeks. The street shall be built again in the wall, even in troublous times. And after the 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, And the people of the prince shall come and shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Now, this gives the time frame. And one thing that I want to illustrate immediately is the term 70 weeks. So what that means is 70 times 7. And some could say, well, that's a contrivance. Why didn't you just say 490 or 70 times 7? Well, it was the idiom of the day that a week also meant 7 days. Now, the key to interpreting the Bible is using other scriptures in the Bible, line upon line, precept upon precept. That's how you can build on your understanding of the Bible. So if you look in Genesis 29, real quickly, it says Jacob loved Rachel and said, I'm going to serve 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And he's saying this to Laban, negotiating. And Laban said, it's better that I give her to thee than I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. And they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had to her. And Laban said, it must be done so in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee also for this service that thou shalt serve with me. And we understand that the word week in this context was a substitute for the number 7. 70 weeks, 70 weeks of years. 70 times 7 is 490. So now let's look at a very high level, simplified view of the prophecy. So here we have Nehemiah standing before the king Artaxerxes. And in 445, it's recorded in the book of Nehemiah 2:1-8. It gives the date of the king's reign. And we understand that this date works out to be March 5th, 444 BC. And it says that on Nisan 1 of Artaxerxes, that this edict was spoken, 445 BC, and Artaxerxes gives Nehemiah a charge to go and rebuild the temple. So now we understand that the time starts ticking, the 483 years that were spoken of by the angel. So we see that if you take 445 BC, you add 483 years, the Messiah that was to appear appears, and his name is Yeshua. And if you remember in the narrative, there was a time, normally Yeshua would be like, don't noise this abroad, don't tell anybody what happened. It was like a messianic secret. But there's this one day which happened in Nisan 10, AD 33, the triumphal entry, where people were shouting, Hosanna in the highest. And Jesus was reprimanded by the religious leaders, and they said, can you just pipe down with all this praising of you? And he said, I tell you the truth, if they held their peace, the rocks would cry out. This was the day that the Lord had made, and they were to rejoice in that. So if you do the math, and Sir Robert Andersen has a book called The Coming Prince, not only does he do the math, the 483 years, but he makes allowance for specific things such as the 360-day calendar for leap years, for special moons, and he arrives at this very date, Nisan 10, AD 33. This is amazing. This tells us the very day that the Messiah was to appear in Jerusalem, announcing himself as the Messiah. So the next part of this is, it says in the prophecy, the Messiah shall be cut off, and the word is karat, and it means to be mutilated. And that's what happened to the Messiah of Israel. Now you could argue and say, well, you know, maybe there was another Messiah that was born, that came into existence at this time. But if you look at the first century, there really is no Messiah that stands out like Yeshua. And so we understand this 480-day prophecy nails to the very day that Yeshua, the Messiah, was to appear in Jerusalem. So you can see on that diagram, from the left, the decree of Artaxerxes, 483 years, to the Messiah being cut off, and there's the cross right there. This is what I want you to understand. Now, in the past, I had read this for years. I've read the Bible for many, many years, and this was a matter of faith. And now I want to move on to the matter of fact. The fact is, I recently discovered this myself, which this isn't a secret unto numismatics, fans, this is not a secret to historians. But there's a special coin that has Artaxerxes' picture on it. There is some debate. Is this Artaxerxes himself, or is this a warrior? But most likely it's the king. And you can see here that this king is pictured, Artaxerxes I, the very one that we talked about, that is mentioned in the Bible. And secular historians will say that his time frame was from 455 to 420, which coincides with the previous slide, 445 BC. This slide so coincides with what we see in this slide, 445 BC is when he makes the decree. And so doing the mathematics, 445 would have been 10 years into his reign that he made this edict to go restore, rebuild Jerusalem. And here is the coin. So once again, just to illustrate a little bit further, that's Artaxerxes there. That's his decree, 445. And from the vision of Daniel, 483 years later, the Messiah is to appear. This is quite a wonderful and amazing prophecy. To me, this is the most amazing prophecy in the Bible because it gives a prediction down to the very day. But this is not the end of the prophecy. This is the beginning of the prophecy. For you see, the Messiah fulfills an easy number to remember, 365 specific prophecies that Yeshua fulfills at that date in 33 AD. He was born of the tribe of Judah. He was born in Bethlehem. The Gentiles would trust on him. He would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. There's 365 specific prophecies about his life, and he fulfills every single one of them. This is the greatest prophecy in the Bible. The time frame with the 70 weeks of Daniel, and then the proof, the validation that this is indeed the prophesied Messiah by fulfilling 365 prophecies specific. His death is with the wicked, and after 3 days he fulfills the sign of the prophet Jonah. He dies and he's resurrected 3 days later. This is fact. Faith is the ancient text itself. Fact is the fulfillment of these things. Now you could say there is some speculation involved. Why, definitely there is, granted. But this coin you see before you, Artaxerxes, the fifth Persian king, my friends, is a fact. The Bible is validated by the time frame given by secular historians. For me, I had read the ancient text. Now I see before me this coin is proof, fact of the dating of 445, that was within 10 years of the reign of Artaxerxes I. This is an amazing prophecy. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, please leave your name at the bottom and let me know what you think. And I do realize that the 70 weeks of Daniel I've dealt with at a 1,000-foot high bird's eye view. I haven't gone low level into the details, but we're hoping to do so in another video. The thing is, this can be very technical, and I just wanted to keep it simple. Again, if you look at this picture, you can simply remember these things. The prophecy was 445 BC. The fulfillment was 33 AD, 483 years, just like Daniel the prophet had prophesied by the angel. And here in the top right, you can see my simple breakdown. 70 weeks is 70 times 7, which is 490. And that 490, you have to take away one of the weeks, which is the tribulation, which is 7 years. So it takes 483 years from Artaxerxes' prophecy to the Messiah. That's all for today, my friends. Hope to be back soon with another edition of Faith and Fact.